Good evening, good morning, wherever you are across this great wide world. I'm doing a video concerning um, this whole issue with the Venezuela oil and the aftermath of this, and the issue that I find that's important concerning this is that we um, are looking at this whole issue when we're looking at this. And I was watching some pundits and experts on oil and some people that were ex-oil executives talking about the oil in Venezuela and the other oils, and then talking about some of the Santars up in Canada. And my my theory is about this is, we're concentrating so much on oil, and the issue becomes, and I just wrote a paper on this, is we have to be concerned about uh, what could happen, especially in the plains, and we're talking about west of the 100 meridian. What could happen if there's a spill that occurs on these plains and the aftermath that occurs on these, and what could happen if we have to contain that spill. I mean, the issue becomes, case in point is that when we talk about the XL pipeline under Obama, there was some exploratory, but he canceled the project, and then Trump started the project in 2016, and then Trump is not reelected, and then Biden starts the gets rid of the project, and then TC Energy um, box out of the whole thing when Trump gets reelected because they lose, I believe it was like almost $8 million in revenue concerning the pipeline, and they sold their interests to South Bow, who now has like the rights to the pipeline, and they have all what I call the what's the word I'm looking for, is they have all the right of ways rights to the to the to the to the the abatements and everything concerning the pipeline areas. So the issue becomes, we're looking at all this oil the last 2 weeks, and the issue becomes we need to concentrate. And I've said this before, we reached our peak production in the United States in oil in the early 1970s, 72, 73, in on conventional oil. And then, when we're talking about unconventional, which is fracking, we don't know where we are with that, or where we when we reach peak on that. But the world peak on conventional oil occurred, I believe, a little over like 2010 or somewhere in around that neighborhood, somewhere about there. But the issue becomes that we need to look at renewable energy, and I think that's our best bet. I mean, even when I think about it, I think that's the best when we talk about wind and solar. Wind and solar power is probably the best solution on that, and then take that time and work on R&D uh, on giving tax abatement and then refunds for government to make the changes that they need to do concerning, to get the revenue going on other renewables, especially on electric cars. And remember, the United States is one of the big uses of, of gasoline. And at some point, you know, my kids and my grandkids are the ones who are going to have to make those sacrifices, those changes concerning oil. And, we're going to have to get off of that. And I mean, there was a point that I wrote a paper on it that is that, George H. Bush talked about that we, our addiction to oil, and that we need to get off that addiction and move forward into renewable energies. Granted, we've moved a long way on that, but now that we have a current administration that believes in oil and oil reserves, we need to get that focus back on renewables because really, technically, when I was on C-SPAN and was listening to the issue concerning the oil executives, my take on it would be 2030 before the infrastructure in the Venezuela oil would be up to the point where they were producing. And got to remember, this is a thicker oil, so it's not an oil that we can use for gasoline. So it goes back to what I've said is, we have no plan for high speed. And countries like Japan and Europe have already set up those type of things concerning high speed rail and that. And we're just missing the boat on this. And the energy policy that we have on this is not being proactive. It's going back to looking at uh, being reactive and to just doing a system that, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's what we're doing. We're basically doing an insanity thing with oil. And we really need to start looking at alternatives because there's only so much time that the oil is going to be there, and then we don't want to get into these endless wars looking for taking minerals from other countries. Granted, I know that some people think that's a good option and that it's our right, but really it's not our right. It's the same way of when we took land from Native Americans. Was it our right? Well, we could in justification, we could cultivate it and, for farming and that Thomas Jefferson would say noble savages because he thought they can be Christianized and learn the system of what he called the white man's ways. So the issue becomes, for me, is that we're setting up a point where we're setting ourselves up for failure due to the fact that we're looking at doing this oil, fascination with oils, but then again, it's not so much we have fascination with oil by the Trump administration and a fascination in wind power, which, he doesn't believe in, which really, in essence, is probably one of the best solutions, wind and solar power for the short term, because really, technically, we've reached the peak in production in oil. And like I said, let me repeat myself, the Venezuelan oil is the thicker oil, phosphorus. It's more can be used for things uh, like blacktop, not necessarily because it's not that thin oil that they can refine and turn into gasoline. Granted, probably with technology, if they set up a refinery that could probably take that oil and turn it into a thinner oil to burn for gasoline. But there again, according to what I was listening to on C-SPAN with the oil execs, even just to get the production of the regular oil from Venezuela would take till 2030. Now, if we want to, do the technology to take the thicker oil and break it down into gasoline oil, you're probably looking another 2 or 3 years. So we're looking at 2033, 35. And if we're at that stage, we might as well, and Trump will be long gone by then. And necessarily, I don't know if he's going to be still alive, but the fact that his administration won't be in there. And the tendency is we need to come up with a plan that's feasible. And like I said, my concern is that we're just the infamous saying, kicking the can down the road and really not solving the problem. But that I think that's part of the issue that becomes with this current administration, and they're not looking at the long-term ramifications of things. They're just looking at short goals and not the risk management. And a lot of these people, once the midterms are over, they're looking at a higher office, and it's guaranteed that doesn't guarantee anything if they're having issues concerning um, you know doing crazy things and not really helping American people. And my final point on this is if we go into R&D, and I believe in a free market economy, we can take this free market economy and turn it into renewable energy. In other words, we could do research and development, have companies set up to where they get tax breaks and incentives to create, you know, uh, lower their, their footprint, their ecological footprint, and then also to increase renewable energies and create like hybrid cars, and I think that's the best solution, hybrid and electrical cars. My only concern about electrical cars is the batteries, for the most part, are minerals, and most of those minerals are found in other countries, and the batteries, are, for the most part, are produced in China. So really, we're not putting our best foot forward again on that. All this stuff, and if the Trump administration is true to their word about let's make America great again, is take that R&D and put it into forming batteries or organizations that can produce these batteries in the United States and hybrid cars in the United States. Anyway, these are just some food for thoughts. If you like what I say, please like and subscribe to my channel. Have any questions, feel free to email me at bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. That's bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. And have a great day and talk to you real soon. Bye.